Hi, my name's Jade, and the biodiversity issue that I'm going to be talking to you about is the Caledonian forest. So, what is the Caledonian forest? Well, it's the native woodland of Scotland, and as you may be able to tell from my accent, that's where I'm from. It's a habitat for many species, so a great source of biodiversity, but unfortunately, currently, not much of them remains. So, which organisms are involved? Well, the Caledonian forests are made up of many species. Obviously, trees, so lots of species of trees, including rowan, aspen, hazel, birch, oak, just to name a few. Other plants as well, including bog myrtle, bracken, mosses, heathers, ferns. Um, there's lots of birds that rely on forest habitats, including black grouse, chaffinch, golden eagle, osprey, great spotted woodpeckers. Um, with thriving forests, you also get many mammal species like beavers, badgers, otters, pine martens, red deer, red squirrel, Scottish wildcat, and even wild boars and Eurasian lynx can thrive in these ecosystems. As well as these trees, birds, and mammals, many insects, fungi, reptiles, fish, and lichens are involved as well. So, as you can see, there's a huge range of biodiversity at stake here. So, why is losing the Caledonian forest a problem? Well, first of all, the forest is at risk, it is a problem. As I mentioned before, much of the forest has already been lost. So, early agriculture started approximately 3,900 years ago, and this included clearing and burning forest for agricultural land. Subsequently, exploitation for timber and charcoal meant that by around 1900, um, only 5% of Scotland was covered in woodland, and this 5% was fragmented. This meant that many species were lost. On top of this, current pressure of grazing by sheep and deer mean that none of the young trees are surviving, and the old trees are getting to the end of their life. So these put together mean that in the next 50 years, if we don't do anything, we could risk losing the entire Caledonian forest. But why should we care about this? Why should we protect and save the Caledonian forest? Well, as I mentioned before, woodland is home to many species, and there is intrinsic value to this biodiversity. Moreover, a diverse woodland is more resilient. It can withstand the changes that are coming with climate change. Um, and woodland provides ecosystem services for us. So, climate regulation, for example, trees absorb carbon dioxide, regulation of precipitation patterns, flood prevention, because vegetation means that runoff of rainwater is slower. Also, native woodlands are wonderful places for recreation, so people can enjoy walking through them. This can attract people to come to the area for tourism, which can increase the local economy. And also, it provides well-being, so being in a forest makes people feel good. So these are the reasons why I think we should protect the Caledonian forest. So, what's the broader importance of this issue? Well, I think there's an issue of perception. When people in Scotland, especially my generation, hear the word deforestation, they think of something that's happening overseas, in tropical rainforests, for example. They don't think of the deforestation that's happened in Scotland. This is a result of something called shifting baseline syndrome. There's also a perception that sheep and deer is the only thing that we can do with a lot of our landscape. Whereas actually, I think it's the other way around. The overgrazing by sheep and deer means that nothing else can be done with that landscape. Also, there's a perception that we have lots of forests. And while that is true, a lot of the forest that I grew up around was monoculture forestry plantations, not native forest. This also relates to something else, which is engagement. So if people don't think that there's a problem with deforestation, with loss of forest, with loss of biodiversity in their own country, and it's something that's happening in far off lands, they don't tend to be very engaged with it. So by bringing this issue up, then I hope that the Scottish public can become more engaged with our own wildlife and our own biodiversity issues. If people engage with this issue and get behind it, they're going to care more about it, and then hopefully they're going to want to protect it more and get more actively involved in that. So conserving the forest that we have and creating more of it, doing reforestation projects, would result in a land use change. So lots of the land is currently used for sheep and deer farming could be reforested and be used for tourism instead. And there has been studies that have shown that this land use change could actually increase the economic productivity of that land. I will note here though, however, that this must be done with the consent and enthusiasm and backing of the local landowners. It cannot be forced upon people. We must do this in conjunction with people, not against them. And this brings us to the future. So this sort of land use change and conserving our forest could make a sustainable future for lots of land in Scotland, a sustainable future of ecotourism, and it would also protect these beautiful, wonderful, diverse landscapes for future generations, which I think is incredibly important. Why do I feel passionately about this issue? Well, Scotland is my homeland, so it's very close to my heart. I care about the people there, my family are there, my friends are there, and I care about the other people of Scotland. I also care about the environment, and forest woodlands are extremely important part of our environment. They are, as I mentioned before, carbon sinks, so they can help protect us against climate change, and they help regulate the hydrological cycle. I also care about the biodiversity. It has intrinsic value, as I mentioned before, but also I like seeing native species. When I'm out walking, I love when I see a red squirrel. It brings me joy. So if there was more of these species and more of these native landscapes, that would bring me, and I hope others, a lot of joy. So, what will I do in the future to help the Caledonian forest? Well, I currently live in Australia, but I'm going to be spending a good part of this year back home in Scotland. When I go back, I've already planned a visit to Glen Affric, which is the largest expanse of least disturbed forest in the UK. And I'm not just going by myself, I'm going to take family members and hopefully a few friends. I'm hoping this will engage them in this forest and show them how magical and wonderful and diverse and precious these forests are and how much we should protect them. As I travel around visiting family and friends, I'm hoping to have lots of conversations about this issue, engaging family and friends and even strangers in it. With these conversations, I also hope to understand how they feel about it, about the biodiversity, about the importance of the Caledonian forest, what their opinions are, and if they have any ideas of things we can do to help protect it. I'd like to give a shout out to Trees for Life, which is a non-profit organisation which is doing a lot of work to conserve and regenerate and reforest and rewild the Scottish landscape. Their website is here. It's treesforlife.org.uk, and I recommend anyone going there if you want any more information on this subject. And while I'm back home, I would love to join one of their conservation days or weeks, and maybe bring a family or friend along to that, to actually get hands-on experience and be involved in the reforesting that they're doing. Currently, as I said, I don't live in Scotland right now, but my hands-on ability is somewhat limited. But I am donating to them a small monthly sum, and I intend to keep doing this as long as possible to help support the wonderful work they're doing. Another thing that I would like to do is that in our family we give presents, so we give gifts for Christmas and birthdays and other special occasions to each other. And While many gifts are wonderful and I love them, I love giving gifts, often this can come up with some conflict in myself because sometimes you don't know what to get someone and you end up buying something that has taken a lot of resources to produce and the person doesn't need it or doesn't want it, and it can be a bit wasteful. So my idea for this coming year is to give gifts of forest. So Trees for Life, you can actually buy a tree of your choice or a number of trees and plant a tree on behalf of someone else as a present. I think this would be a really nice way um, to share this issue, and also I hope it's a great way to spark conversation with my family about this important issue. Thank you for listening, and if any of you ever have the chance to visit Scotland, I hope that you take a trip to the Caledonian forest and enjoy this wonderful ecosystem and all the biodiversity that it has to offer.